basic train 1 today, which covers how to use the federal system, how to tell the difference between the types of contracts that were put out for bid or done as a simplified acquisition, or if it was set aside for a particular demographic. And we're going to go through setting up reoccurring searches in FBO, so you guys automatically get the opportunities to bid on, and your caption and elevator pitch. First, we're going to start with the difference between contracts that are put out for bid and not put out for bid, or what's the government calls simplified acquisitions. Simplified acquisitions have been around for a long time, but there's been some major changes on them since the government passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act back in 2010 and started guaranteeing 23% of the federal budget to small businesses. By 2012, June 6th, this addendum was sent out basically because none of the agencies were doing 23% like they were asked to do, and the Obama administration wanted to know why. They came to the conclusion that there was still too many rules in place that made it difficult for small businesses to work with the federal government, and they made the following changes. The rule of 2, they made it optional. It's no longer mandatory. If a federal purchasing agent cannot get a second quote from a second small business, they're still allowed to award the contract as long as they search and compare your price to what they've paid before, and your price is fair based on what they paid before. They can hire you without getting a second quote. You're going to see a lot of contracts in the federal procurement data system where there was only one bid, and that's because the rule of 2 is no longer mandatory. There was a cap on simplified acquisitions. They used to be $25,000 and under, but if you're asking a federal agency to do 23% of their budget with small businesses and their budget's $100 million and they have to do it at $25,000 at a pop, it's statistically impossible. It's a paperwork nightmare for them to do that much paperwork. So they've increased the threshold several times, and most recently, depending on the agency and the set aside, some of them are 500,000, some of them are 8 million. But what you're going to see in the federal procurement data system is that there are simplified acquisitions that have been awarded that have no cap on them. I've seen one about a month ago awarded to a woman-owned small business. She only did $250,000 in revenues last year. The government gave her an $88.5 million IDIQ over the next 5 years, and it was done as a simplified acquisition. The third major change on these types of contracts, they were post-paying like they do on bid contracts. You would have to do the work, submit your invoices, and you would be paid within 15 to 30 days. Well, a lot of small businesses can't afford to pay for the supplies and materials and gas and labor out of pocket, so the Obama administration made the modification on most simplified acquisitions. They're going to prepay. They're going to pay you up front. These contracts can be done 2 different ways. Simplified acquisitions basically means no bid. And then you've got set-asides, contracts that are set aside for a small business or woman, a minority, or a veteran, 8A, or HUBZone. Those can be done as simplified acquisitions, or they can be put out for bid like a normal contract. We're going to look at that next. Set-asides are contracts that are set aside for a small business, which is 23% of the federal budget. They can also be set aside for minorities, which is 5%. Whoops. Or a woman, which is 5%, or a veteran, which is 5%, or service-disabled veteran, which is an additional 3%, or an 8A, which is 5%, or HUBZone, which is 3%, which totals 49% of the federal budget. If you were a service-disabled, veteran-owned, woman-owned, minority-owned, 8A, HUBZone, you would have access to 49% of the federal budget in your area. Does that mean you're going to win 49%? No, but that means you have access to it that are set-asides. Now, the place these contracts are tracked is the Federal Procurement Data System, or FPDS.gov. That's where the government posts these contracts to prove that they're meeting their minimum criteria. The problem is, and the best way to understand this problem, let's say an agency has a $100 million budget and they have to hire 23% small businesses, but they hire a small business in January and they pay that small business $23 million and their budget's $100 million, then they've met their small business set aside for the year on just that one contract. They're not going to continue to post any other small business contract they award throughout the year because they've already met their criteria. They don't have to post more contracts because they've already proven that they met that criteria. So the system only tracks a small percentage of the spending. The formula that I've come up with to guesstimate what the system tracks is by taking those set-asides and adding them up and then dividing them by the number of set-asides, which is 7. So the Federal Procurement Data System, where they post the set-asides, only tracks about 7% of the federal spending. It's enough to give us a general idea of what the government spends money on overall across the board, and I'm going to round it up to 10% to make the math easy. So this is what I'm going to call the 10% rule, and that's what this system, fpds.gov, and I'm going to email you all these links so you don't have to write them all down. That's what this system tracks, is the set-asides, and it's only about 10% of the spending. So if we look up, you can search this system by keyword, NAICS code, DUNS number, cage code, a company name, state, city, zip code. The only thing you can't search in here is a federal purchasing agent's name. If we search it by keyword, like, let's just do construction. We'll see that under the keyword construction, there's 2,111,471 federal contracts in the system under construction. With the 10% rule, that means there's 2,100,000,000 contracts that have been awarded across the board in the history of this system overall in the entire spending under the whole federal budget. But only about 10% of that is showing up in this system. Now we can search for what's done as an 8A by simply adding the word 8A. Out of that 2,434,000 contracts have been awarded to an 8A company. Out of that 2,236,000 have been awarded to women. Out of that 2,400,000 have been awarded to a minority, etc. So you can use the system to see the actual individual set-asides. I'm going to email you a copy of this fair share letter, and it shows the breakdown right here. The best set-asides to have is either being a veteran, a service-disabled veteran, an 8A, a HUBZone or GSA. Those are your best set-asides. The HUBZone and the 8A are by far the biggest set-aside and the best opportunity for you to work with the government, only because of the amount of competition. Right now, actively, around 5,300 8As. There's only about 4,144 HUBZones, and I just read a report this morning from the SBA that they're eliminating about 600 HUBZone vendors for not being registered properly. So there's literally right now only about 3,500 HUBZone vendors in the system. The reason why these are more powerful is because of the sheer lack of competition. 8As get the same 5% that minorities and women and veterans get, but there's less than 0.1% of the competitors in the 8A. And same thing with the hubs. They only get 3%. They get a couple % left. But there's only 3,500 HUBZone vendors right now that are active. Veterans,
hey, John?
Yes, sir.
What is 8A?
8A is the registration that you would qualify for if we can prove discrimination. So Native Americans and Alaskan Natives automatically qualify for an 8A. Minorities, 95% chance you can qualify for an 8A. Veterans and women, it's about 50-50. And other than that, you wouldn't qualify without having some type of social disadvantage. The HUBZone, you just have to be in a HUBZone, you have to be a small business, and 35% of your employees have to work in the HUBZone. That's it. Your third most powerful set-aside is being a veteran or a service-disabled veteran, only because there's only 39,000 veterans compared to 60,000 minorities and 67,000 women. And if you look just statistically alone, minorities and women have been discriminated against for a long time. It's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, but it still exists. And you can tell just by the sheer numbers. Veterans have received $826 billion of the federal spending. Women have only gotten 76, less than 10%. and minorities have only received 11. They've gotten 0.1%. But that's how your set-asides break down. And if you qualify for an 8A, you need to get in it as soon as possible. Same thing with HUBZone, because the government's always changing this stuff. They're changing the GSA schedule. They're combining schedules. They're getting rid of schedules. They sometimes will fill a schedule and they'll close it. They won't let anybody else in it. So anything you qualify for, you want to get on it as soon as possible before you don't qualify it or the government modifies that you can't do it anymore. Now we're back to the Federal Procurement Data System. I want to show you how to tell the difference between a bid and a no bid. I can tell you right now this contractor was awarded on the 16th, which was Friday or Saturday. I know this was done as a simplified acquisition. This is a no bid because they're going in action obligation already. They've already been paid $44,468.50. They were paid this up front because the contract was just awarded. There's already a dollar amount. If we click the view link and go inside that contract, we'll see that it's an $800 million contract from 5/16/15 to 9/24/15, so it's less than a one-year contract, about 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, a little over. They were paid $44,468.50 up front. They're probably going to pay monthly or something like that. They've come to terms with some type of agreement as far as payment. This company is an emerging small disadvantaged, service-disabled veteran-owned small business. They're emerging small, which means they're going to be out of that category soon. They only did $10,500,000 in revenues with 39 employees, but the government gave them another $8 million contract this year. So with one contract, they've almost doubled their revenues for the year. This contract was full and open competition, service-disabled veteran-owned small business set-aside, and there was 6 offers received. Now, I thought this was a simplified acquisition because they were prepaid, but it's not. It was full and open competition, and they do have some contracts where they put them out for bid where they'll pay a deposit up front. Doesn't tell us a whole lot about what they're doing, some type of seismic corrections to buildings, modifications. Sometimes they'll give us a detailed description. Sometimes they don't give us any description at all. If you want to see a more detailed report as far as what it is that they were buying, you look to your solicitation ID right here, and if there's an ID number in here, you can search that ID number and you can find the original solicitation. So you know exactly what it is they're doing. But in this instance, we're limited. Hit the back button, go back to date signed. Go to the next one. Beckering Advisory, Inc. for the Department of the Armory. There's another contract where there were prepaid portion. It's a $7.9 million contract. They were prepaid $60,000. This company is not a woman, minority, or veteran-owned. They're not an 8A. They're not in a HUBZone. They got 21 employees. They did $30 million in revenues last year. The only NAICS code they're going to still qualify under as far as a small business, is the NAICS code for industrial construction. So bridge building, tunnels, stuff like that is 35, if I remember correctly off my head, it's 35.5 million and under. So that's the last NAICS code they're going to qualify as a small business. With this contract here, depending on what revenues they've done this year, they might be over 35. They won't qualify next year. But that's a good problem to have. It was a small business set-aside. That was not done as a simplified acquisition. It was full and open, and it was 8 bidders on it. Click the back button. Go back to date signed. Next one on the list. That was full and open competition as well. I'm trying to find a simplified acquisition to show you guys. That was full and open. This company, an American Indian, minority, Native American, emerging woman-owned, self-certified, disadvantaged, $800,000 of revenues. Government gave him a $700,000 contract. That's not uncommon these days. That one's full and open competition. There was only 4 bidders. We're going to go ahead and put in simplified because they're usually run across one already. Okay, so this is an example of a simplified acquisition. It was a small business set aside, and there's a prime example of the rule of 2 no longer being mandatory. They only got 1 offer received. They didn't pursue a second offer. They had roof repairs, interior and exterior, and obviously needed it done quickly, so they're not going to put that out for bid. They're going to do that as a simplified acquisition. I'm looking for one that's a decent size because these small purchases like that, it makes sense to do it as a simplified acquisition because it's too much paperwork to do a small purchase. So example of this one right here for $40,000. So that one's a simplified acquisition, small business set aside. They did collect more than 1 offer on that one. There was 5 offers total. They're a $4 million company, no set asides, 2 employees, $40,000 contract from 15 to 624. So you guys get the general idea of how to search the system, how to tell the difference between what's put out for bid, if it was set aside for a minority or woman, veteran, 8A, HUBZone, etc. And I want to show you one more thing you have. Not every contract that you find a bid on is going to be a perfect fit. A lot of times we find contracts where I have a manufacturer who makes the product or I have a distributor who carries the product, but they don't install it. And the government looking to buy the product and have it installed. You can subcontract portions of a contract out. That is legal. The government actually enforces subcontracting. Any big company that gets a contract over $650,000, they're forced to hire 23% small businesses as subcontractors, or they can lose the contract or even be fined. So the government not only enforces, encourages subcontracting, but there are companies out there that make a living out of doing just that. They're what's called a broker. They don't actually touch the product. They don't actually provide the service. They find a supplier who needs it. They find a supplier who has it. They find a buyer who needs it, and they broker it. They mark up the price and sell it directly to the buyer. And in a lot of instances, the supplier ships it directly to the buyer. They don't even have to touch the product. It just goes straight from A to B. They make a profit on it. Prime example of a broker, show you, is FBO. FBO is Fed Biz Ops, Federal Business Opportunities, or FBO.gov. Again, I'll email you these links. You have to write them all down. If I could ask everybody to pause again so everybody can hear me okay. FBO is the database where the government posts contracts for bid. Any of you guys that have signed up for Simplified Acquisitions, your case manager would have already created an FBO account for you. If you don't have access to it, let me know, and I'll email your case manager and ask them to resend your login information. Once you get your login information, you go to the green section right here where it says Vendor Citizens. You put in your username and password, and you click Login, and you accept the terms and conditions. And you're going to get the only two links you're going to use is this one and this one, the View Watch List and the View Save Searches. You go to the View Save Searches. You're not going to have any searches set up, or you might have one set up where your case manager does it by NAICS code. I'm going to teach you how to set them up by keyword, because keyword is more important than NAICS codes, because NAICS codes are confusing and vague. You may have 5 NAICS codes that are your primary NAICS codes, but if a government agency uses the wrong code to put a solicitation out, and you're not using that code because it's the wrong code, you're not going to get that opportunity because you're limited yourself with your NAICS codes. I learned this the hard way. A client of mine about 3 years ago called me up and she said, this agency wants to buy my product, but they told me I need to get registered, and I was told you could help me get registered. So we got her registered, and I was walking her through the system, and we got her set up under the correct NAICS code, and I helped her with a couple more bids, and she won some more bids. She was selling to about 5 different agencies under that NAICS code. Can you guys go ahead and put me on mute so everybody can hear? I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Hey, baby.
Can you guys hear me okay? Can you mute the phone so not everybody's hearing the feedback?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to mute this.
Yes, John, we're on mute. We can hear you loud and clear. Go ahead.
But we're hearing you guys though. I'm hearing a lot of background noise and stuff. Can you mute it that way? So she was selling to 5 different agencies under that one NAICS code. And then she got a call from an agency saying they wanted to buy her product, but because she was using the wrong NAICS code. Well, she called me in a panic. We're using the wrong code, and she was distraught. And I told her, sit down, take a deep breath. You're not using the wrong code. That purchasing agent is using the wrong code, and that's okay. Let him use the wrong code. As long as he's buying from you, you can use whatever code he wants. But the way we eliminate that is we set up your searches by keywords. And by doing searches by keywords, we'll never miss out on an opportunity. So to add a search, you scroll down here where it says Add New Search Agent on it. The first thing we're going to do is label it. We're going to name it. So we're going to name this one Asphalt. If you want to specify a service area, you click on your state. If you want to specify multiple states, you have to hold down the control button. And you can pick multiple states as long as you hold that button down. If you don't hold the button down, every time you click a state, it's going to unhighlight the other state. And if you want to search all 50 states, don't click any of them, and it'll search all 50. If you don't want to cover your whole state, you can go in and put zip codes with commas in between them. But I suggest you at least monitor your state until you get it down. And then once you pick your service area, then you take your name, your label, and you copy it. You scroll down here where it says keyword or SAW number, and you paste it. So that's the name of our search. That's our service area, and that's the keyword it's going to look for. And that's it. You scroll to the very bottom, save and schedule it, yes, enable, and then save it. And now we just created our search under asphalt. I've got hundreds of searches in here because every time I do this, I add another example. But there's our keyword asphalt right there. This search is going to run once a day, automatically, every day for the rest of our lives until we tell it to stop. And it's only going to look for brand new stuff that's been added in the last 24 hours or modified in the last 24 hours. So it's not going to rehash the same stuff over and over again. If you want to do a 2-word search, so a keyword search that's more than 1 word, you do it the same way, but you put a quote on the outsides and you put a capital "and" in between your words. That eliminates anything. If you don't do that, you're going to find anything with the word "air" and anything with the word "plane" in it. With the quotes and the capital "and," it only looks for those 2 words together. And of course, you do it the same way in the search box. If you want to do a 3-word search, same thing, quotes and a capital "N" in between each word. So it's going to eliminate a lot of the garbage. Now, setting up these searches, and using different keywords, we're going to obviously find a lot of solicitations that are going to cross-reference. That's okay. This is a learning phase. We want to get through this learning phase first by seeing which keyword searches work, which ones bring us the best hits, and which ones bring us garbage. Eventually, I'm going to teach you how to log in and modify these to get rid of some of the garbage. But for now, we got to see what works and what doesn't. You're going to start receiving emails from noreply@fbo.gov. The emails are going to look like this. So it'll say noreply@fbo.gov. Make sure to check, if you're not getting them, check your bulk spam or junk mailbox that might be going in there. If it is going into your bulk spam or junk, you can actually take it and just drag it right into your inbox, and it'll put it on your preferred recipients list in the future. Once you're getting those emails, it's going to tell you your FBA opportunity search agent called, and it's going to tell you the name of it, whatever we named it, has identified the following opportunities. It doesn't give us a lot of information under the title. Matter of fact, it gives us hardly any info at all. But if it sounds interesting, click on the blue link, and it's going to take you into FBO, into that specific solicitation. Okay? The first thing you read when you get in here, before you start reading the details, the first thing you look at is the general information over here on your right, and you look at when it's due, when's the response date, do we have time to respond, and what it's set aside for. It's set aside for a total small business. If it's set aside for a service-disabled woman, veteran, 8A HUBZone, we don't qualify for all that. Don't waste a bunch of time spending on this opportunity if we don't qualify for it. Or if we don't have time to bid. If there's 20 attachments, there's 20 forms attached that we got to review to submit a bid, and it's due in 2 days, more than likely we don't have enough time to bid on it. Let's focus on stuff that we have time to bid on. If, see how this one was posted on May 11th? Let's say it was posted May 11th and it's due May 12th. Let's say the response date's May 12th, not the 25th. If there's only 1 day to respond, do not waste your time on it unless it's a standard form, which are really easy to bid. If they only put it out 1 day, more than likely they're doing that because they already know who they want to hire, but they have to put it out for bid so they don't get in trouble. So if you're only given 1 day to submit a bid, unless it's an easy bid, don't read a bunch of documents to submit a bid for 1 day because more than likely they know who they want to hire already. So that, or if it's set aside for something we don't qualify for, don't waste any time on it. Now, if it's something that's a good fit and we're interested, but we don't qualify because it's a service-disabled veteran 8A HUBZone, you can still click watch this opportunity even though we're not going to bid on it because they might not get any bidders and it might be modified and put out for anyone to bid on. So once you read the general info and the set-aside and you still have interest in it, then you read the synopsis. The synopsis is going to tell us what it is they're wanting to buy. So this is blah, blah, blah. You're going to find these solicitations have a lot of repeat information. After you do a few of them, you're going to get comfortable and you're going to speed read them. You're not going to read it and understand every word. I can tell you based on what I'm seeing here, this is for some type of training or some type of, they want to teach people about economic growth. It might be a commercial to visit Alaska. Organized, facilitated, 2 day long time, blah, blah, blah. So they're having an on-site report. There's going to be quarterly reports summarizing. They got a communication strategy. Okay, so this is for an annual summit. Now, this is a sources sought, meaning it's not put out for bid yet. They're looking for sources that are interested. On a sources sought, all you can do is follow the instructions, whatever they tell you. In this case, they want you to send them over your cap statement. No longer than 3 pages to this email. That's all you got to do to let them know you're interested in this. And then click watch this opportunity. If you have any interest on a solicitation, if you want to bid on it, if you want to bid on it and it's subcontract a portion of it or subcontract the whole thing, or you just want to be notified if it's modified or changed, like this one, if there's only one day response or if it's set aside for something we couldn't do, you can still watch it in case it's modified or changed. Or if you have no interest in doing the contract, but you'd like to know who it was awarded to because you could offer your services to them as a sub, click the Watch This Opportunity link. Once you're on the watch list, you'll be notified when it's modified or who it's awarded to. When I told you earlier, the only two links you're going to use is this one and this one. That's your watch list. That's everything you click Watch This Opportunity is going to go on that list right there. And it makes it easy when we're doing bids for you to say, hey, John Wayne, I need to put this bid. We can just log into your FBO and it's right there. Any questions on setting up your search agents and responding to opportunities?
No. Hello, John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Rose. Willie's been trying to speak. Babe.
Yes.
He can, but he can hear you on my headset. Come over here.
Okay. John, are we going to go through the
Why don't you come over here? All right, sorry, I'm back. Hello, John?
That's okay. Yes.
Okay, we wanted to know if we going to go over the watch list that we did this weekend. I believe that's what his question was. The watch list that was created this weekend. Are you going to go over that?
The watch list that was created this weekend. I'm not following you.
I mean, on this week, last week, actually.
Have you guys done the training before?
Yes.
Okay, no. Today we're just doing the first training. If you guys want to go over the watch list, you can join the second or third training. I can send you information on that. That's no problem. I've got a couple of people that are doing this training over again because they did it a while ago and they wanted to just do it again to refresh.
Okay.
But we won't have time for that today.
Okay, I do have a question though.
Yes.
What you just went over. Let's say if
Yes.
we're definitely interested in bidding on one of those in the FBO.
Yes.
I pulled one up earlier this morning and it gave me a bunch of links and I had no idea which one to open and how to submit a bid on that because there were so many links.
Okay. On the third training, the third training is actually me sitting down with the people that join and going through bids.
Oh, okay.
The second training we're going to cover subcontracting, and that's only about half an hour. So if you want to email me, put it on your watch list and just email John Wayne. I want to go through this bid with you. We'll do it on we'll set aside some time to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I can do that. Yes.
Any other questions on FBO?
No, sir. Thanks.
Okay, excellent. So, excuse me. Most federal purchasing agents are going to ask you when you submit a bid or if you're interested on a solicitation or if it's a sole source or single source, something like that, and they're just gathering information, they're going to ask you if you will send them a copy of your cap statement. A cap statement or capability statement is nothing more than a resume for your business. I'm going to encourage you to put together a one-page cap statement that you can use to send to purchasing or procurement agents when they want information. The one you're going to put together, you can actually, if you signed up for Simplified Acquisitions, your case manager built your cap statement already, and it's on your website. It's on your federal portal. You can just go in there and cut and paste your capabilities narrative and your cap statement information right off your website. If you didn't sign up for Simplified Acquisitions, you can put together a cap statement by hand. It's real simple. Your letterhead with your logos and your information on it, and a page full of information that I'm going to show you, when, where, how, and why. I'm going to email you a copy of that. So You're going to take your letterhead or a piece of paper with your logo on it. You're going to write a capabilities narrative. A capabilities narrative is a paragraph that tells them why you're different. It's like the paragraph at the top of a resume. It doesn't tell them what you do. It tells them why you're better than the next guy. You're an early riser. You're organized. You're a people person. So in the federal arena, you're going to tell them you've got 20 years experience. You've been in business 7 years. You're a woman, minority-owned small business. You subcontract work for Raytheon for 5 years. You offer 24-hour emergency service. You won the Contractor of the Year award of your county for blah, blah, blah. Things that separate you from the next guy go in that paragraph. Excuse me. Once you write your capabilities narrative, you're going to put that on this page along with your contact information, a list of your couple of NAICS codes, your DUNS number and cage code, 3 references, 3 people that will vouch for you. If you don't want to put a person's name and phone number, just put the name of their company and put contact information available upon request. Or you can put the person's name, contact information available upon request. If you don't want their information floating around, I understand. Most federal purchasing agents are not going to call your references, but they like to see them. I've had people in the last 4 or 5 years since I've been here, I've had new startup companies say, well, I don't have 3 references, and I'd tell them to use me as a reference, and I've yet to have a federal purchasing agent call me or email me to verify that reference. So very rarely are these people going to be bothered, but you need them on there. Just it builds validity. And then these logos down here that show you're compliant in SAM, you're a verified vendor, you're compliant in D&B, you want those on there minimum. You can put any other certification logos or agencies you're registered with. If you're a woman-owned, you can put a WSB. If you're 8A, you can put an 8A, but you need these minimum. So I'm going to email you this. I'm going to show you samples of cap statements now. If you want to see samples, go to Google, search the word capability statement, and click images link. There's tens of thousands of sample cap statements online. So just go to Google, search capability statement. Click on the images link right here. And there's tens of thousands of sample cap statements for you to decide how you want to lay yours out, what you want it to look like. Just use the KISS theory. Keep it simple, smart. Don't overdo it. You're not trying to close a deal with this. You're just using it to get in the door. This is an example, and I hate to say it. I don't like talking bad about people, but this is an example of a bad cap statement. It's just too busy. There's too much information. It says the word engineering services on it. I counted 13 times it says engineering services on here. Engineering services, engineering services. It is overkill. And the red and black font, I understand that's their color scheme, but for me it's really hard on my eyes. And there's no flow. I mean, it kind of goes up and down in columns, but there's no flow to this. It's just a bunch of information thrown on a page. If I was a purchasing agent, I would not read this. Keep it simple. A good example of a cap statement, as a matter of fact, I got one right here. This is a good one. It's simple. She had already put this together, so I'm having her modify it. There was another one I got last week that was really good. That's a good one, but it's 2 pages. We need to start with just a simple 1-page form. She didn't finish hers yet. That's not it. Where's it at? Here it is. She did exactly what I asked her for. 1 page. Minimum graphics, that's their graphic, that's their logo, contact information, codes, capabilities narrative, a list of companies they've done business for, references, brief description, the logos. Very simple, sweet, short, to the point. That's a great cap statement right there. So Send me a copy of your cap statement once you get it done, or get a rough draft done. You're also going to take your capabilities narrative, that one sentence or one paragraph I said for you to write. You're going to take that capabilities narrative and you're going to shorten that down. You're going to sweeten that down into a 10, 15-second elevator pitch. I want you to tell me within 15 to 20 seconds what you do and why you do it better than the next guy. And that's going to go into your elevator pitch. Whenever I have you call a federal purchasing agent or a prime contractor to do work for them, I want you to be able to get your point across within the first 15 to 20 seconds so that you can then ask them a question and get them involved. I don't want you having a 2-minute capabilities narrative or 2-minute elevator pitch where you just call them up and ramble on the phone for 2 minutes. Get it down to 15, 20 seconds. Send me a copy of that in your cap statement, and try and do that before the next training, because the next training involves marketing yourselves to primes and federal purchasing agents, and we're going to need that to do so. I got one more piece of homework for you guys. And I forgot what I was doing. Here we go. I can't keep up with myself sometimes. You probably have been and will continue to receive phone calls and emails from people calling you trying to sell you stuff. As soon as you are compliant and SAM, these guys come out of the woodwork. Matter of fact, you'll know as soon as your cage code becomes active, because you'll get phone calls and emails immediately from people telling you you need a GSA and you need to buy their program and buy their disc and their CD and get in their book and use their database. None of these guys are federally endorsed, number one. We're the only organization that exists on this planet that does what we do that's federally endorsed. A lot of these guys, unfortunately, are straight up scams. They just want your money. They don't care about your registrations. They're going to try and sell you a GSA for $5,000, but they don't do any of the work. They just take your money and disappear. Best thing to do with these people calling you and emailing you, a lot of them are spamming you, the best thing to do is completely ignore them. If there's an unsubscribe link on the bottom of the email, that's usually a good idea. But if they're a foreign entity, they don't have to follow our rules. More than likely, that unsubscribe link doesn't even work. It's just there to make them look legitimate. When you call and email these people back and say, take me off your list, I'm not interested, you're not only wasting your time, but you're also verifying your phone number and your email is correct. And you're literally causing yourself more problems by responding to them. Best thing to do, ignore them. They'll go away within a week or two. If you get a phone call or an email from someone and they sound like they're legitimate, but you're not sure, call me first. Forward the email to me. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Call me first. Forward the email to me. If they're asking you for a credit card for security clearance, the government will ask you to get security clearances, but they're not going to ask you for a credit card to do so. That's a scam. If they're telling you they're going to wire the money into your account tomorrow to have you start this job, and they're asking you for your account number, that's a scam. The government already has your account number. It's part of your cage code. That's why we had you attach a check to your worksheets. If they're asking you for this information up front, forward it to me or email me or call me. I know the scams. I know the difference between the good guys and the bad guys. So anytime you need me, I'm here. Watch. You don't need those two. You don't need the rest of these. If you haven't seen these already, I want you to watch these two links, the NBCC Federal Prime. Watch this when you can focus on it. Go home, sit down, grab a cup of coffee, whatever your poison is, kick your shoes off, and watch this presentation. It's a half an hour. It's 30 minutes long, but you will learn a ton. This is my presentation from the NBCC convention last year. There's a great presentation, and I'm not saying that because I'm blowing smoke. I'm telling you what I've been told, the feedback I've gotten from this, even from federal purchasing agents have told me this is a great presentation. Watch it. You'll learn a lot. Take notes if you need. Once you watch that one, then watch this one. This one covers subcontracts. It's only 5 minutes long. It's nowhere near as painful. You'll learn a lot from it. And the best part I like about this one, when it ends, because it's only 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 54 seconds, and it covers subcontracting. When it ends, it automatically loads an interview. If you don't stop it, automatically loads an interview with Harry C. Offord. Harry's the CEO and founder of the NBCC. They're almost 80,000 member worldwide organization, and they don't just fight for the rights of African Americans anymore. They fight for the rights of all minorities and women and veterans. Harry, in this interview, explains why I'm on their board, why they've endorsed me, and why they refer their members to me directly, why I'm on their website, everything. So watch that. Any of these videos where you see Max Timko, this guy over here with a smile on his face, you'll see him right there. Max introduces me on that first video. Any video you see with Max's face on it, Max is our PR guy. He's trusted. He's a great guy. He does all of our public relations. Any of the videos he's done where he explains stuff specifically, you can watch those if you like. That's all good stuff. Primarily what we're going over today is federal. On the next training, I'm going to go over some private stuff. I'm going to give you guys some advice on some private areas to help you get more residential, commercial, industrial business. But today was primarily federal. One thing that can help you in the federal arena is free social media. The government is allowed and does use free social media, like LinkedIn, for instance, Facebook. If you don't have a LinkedIn or a Facebook for your business, create one. These are great resources. This is my LinkedIn. You zoom out on that a little bit. That's too much. This is my LinkedIn. This resource right here gets me a new client every month, and I don't even have to work for it. People find me. They read my articles. They find an article where I'm mentioned, and it links them to this page. They see my personal recommendations. I've got over 2,300 federal recommendations on here. I've got over 2,500 followers. There's 500 connections. This site builds validity. When people want to learn more about me, they go to my LinkedIn. They see articles I've written. They see I've got more than 200 readers on this one, 200 readers on that one, 92. Obviously, they see your background and everything else. But this is a great site to build validity when you're working with a new client. And like I said, this site gets me a free client at least once a month without even having to try. I don't even have to go out and look for it. They find me. Federal purchasing agents can and do use free social media to verify you are who you say you are. You got stories of happy clients. You got recommendations. This is all just good validity stuff. Facebook. I've seen more people lose contracts because of Facebook than win them, but your social media is there for you, and it's free. Utilize it. Paid social media, like the Better Business Bureau. The government does not. They're actually not allowed to use the Better Business Bureau because the Better Business Bureau makes you pay them a fee to verify your score, if you will. So when the Better Business Bureau calls you and tells you to give them 10 grand so they can give you an A+, tell them where to stick it, because the federal government does not use the Better Business Bureau, nor do they use scam recover, scam rip-off report, none of that stuff. Your free social media, they can and do use, so take advantage of it. Once you get your LinkedIn set up, you want to add me, write a recommendation to me about how knowledgeable and helpful I am. Great, I appreciate it. I'll write a recommendation to you. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got over 2,600 connections. A lot of them will connect back to you, so you can build your LinkedIn real quick. And the searches I showed you in FBO, those are right here. We can do multiple keywords. Eventually, I'm going to teach you how to use nots and ors. When you're getting too much garbage, we can modify them. And at the bottom of this list is a list of federal acronyms. Since I started working here in 2010, I wrote down every federal acronym I've ever found in alphabetical order and what it means. So you've got a list of acronyms that you can use until you learn the language to speak properly to a federal purchasing agent. I'm working on, and should have it done by the next training, a list of every state agency, every state database, and instructions on how to get registered with every state to sell to state government agencies. But I just started on it today. It's going to be a week before I have that done. I'll send that to you guys next time. Any other questions?
That's good, John. Very informative.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very.
If there's no other questions, I just want to tell you guys, look, I'm on your team, okay? I'm not blowing my own, I'm not tooting my own horn. I know a lot about working with the feds. I've literally done over 1,000 bids with my clients. I'm here to help you. We're going to do some bids together. I know this seems overwhelming. It seems like a ton of information. And let's face it, it's scary. Selling to the federal government is kind of a scary thing. You know, you're worried about making a mistake or doing something wrong, or spending all this time and money and manpower and not being successful with it. It's a scary thing. But at the same time, it can be exciting. It can be fun. You guys didn't build the business you're in, or the business you work for didn't get to where it's at because it just fell into place. It takes blood, sweat, and tears. This is no different. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You have to submit bids. You have to call federal purchasing and procurement agents and hit them with your elevator pitch and send them your cap statement. I'm going to teach you all of that, so just stick with me. If you have questions, you need help, drop me an email. If I'm on the phone doing a training and you need an answer right away, send me an email, because I try and keep track of my emails even when I'm doing these trainings. If you have you know, a time that you need to work on a bid and it's a large bid and it's due in the morning, let me know. I'm not married. I don't have a girlfriend. Therefore, I don't have a life. I don't go home every day at 5. I'm typically here. My hours are 11 to 7, so I'm here 11 to 7 regardless. I'm doing a training tonight at 8 o'clock. If you look at my calendar, every week for the last 3 years looks like this: 8, 9, 10, 12-hour days every week. This is what I do. So if you need me, I'll stay late. I'll come in early. We'll figure it out. If it's due in an hour, I'll reschedule. I'll set my training up for next week, and let's get on that bid right now. But you guys just, you know, don't be scared is all I'm saying. This is no different from when you rode a bicycle when you were a kid. You had a goofy-looking helmet and training wheels, and it was scary, and you fell down, and you scuffed your elbows up a couple of times, but eventually they took the training wheels off, and you figured it out, and then you got rid of the goofy-looking helmet, and eventually you started riding wheelies and jumping hills, and it's no different. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, so I have a question, John.
Yes.
When we first started, they had sent us a bid proposal, a sample bid proposal, and I think like it was like 12 or 15 pages, and ours was down to 8. But you recommended that I put all the permanent information on just one page. Is what you recommend instead of like the 8 pages.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
Right. So you just.
When it comes to federal purchasing and procurement agents, you're going to find there's two sides to the coin, and there really is no in between. They're either really laid back and they're great communicators, and they respond to emails immediately, and they return phone calls, and they don't ask for much, and they're very easy to please, and they're flexible. You're going to find that side of the coin, and then you're really there's no in between. The other side of the coin, they're horrible communicators. They're extremely anal. They never return phone calls or emails. They want everything to a T. Every I is dotted, every T is crossed. They'll tell you what paper they want you to print your cap statement on. They'll tell you what size font they want, what type font, what color, what size margins on the page. I mean, they get really ridiculous. My suggestion is this: take all the easy, the low-hanging fruit first. Let's focus on the easiest stuff, the stuff where we can knock out the most solicitations each week, and eventually we'll take on the harder and harder ones, the more difficult, the more document required solicitations. Let's focus in the beginning on the easiest stuff to get and the stuff that we can throw the most at the wall at once. And then we'll add the more difficult ones as we go. Okay. I mean, obviously, if you find something that's a perfect fit and these guys are right around the corner, we're going to go after it regardless. If it's something you really want, we're going to go after it regardless. But let's start out easy, and don't expect to win your first bid. Just look at it as a learning experience. You're getting comfortable, getting in the system, and and eventually, if willing to make the calls and submit the bids, you're going to be successful in the system, especially with my help. But we just got to get through that learning curve first, get through that confusion, and get you comfortable.
That kind of answered my question.
Any other questions?
Nothing. John, thank you so much. And so tomorrow, 4 o'clock again?
Yeah. Anybody would like to join tomorrow at 4, just send me an email. Tell me you want to be on tomorrow at 4, and I'll add you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. I look forward to working with you guys.
Thanks. Sure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, guys, we can sign off.